Good evening. I'd like to call the August 6, 2018 Davie County Commissioners meeting to order. This time, if you would join me in the invocation. Dear God, as we humbly come before you this evening, we are so thankful for the many blessings that we enjoy here in Davie County in the United States. We ask for your wisdom, guidance, and discernment during the proceedings of this meeting this evening. And to what is accomplished to the positive, we will give you the credit. In your name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
If you will stand and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A good number of folks out tonight. Appreciate everybody coming out, and we will get started. So, entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. The agenda is adopted as presented. All right, we'll move to the public comment period. Next, we have a presentation from the Aging Services Planning Committee, and I'll ask the chairman of that committee, Ms. Allison Brown, to make that presentation.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Allison Brown. I escaped from Atlanta in 1999 and landed here, and couldn't be happier to be a resident of Davie County. I'm the chair of the Davie County Aging Services Planning Committee, and wanted to make sure that we distinguish that this is not the Board of Senior Services. This is a committee that was formed by the Older Americans Act in 1965. The committee has been here in this county since the early 70s, and we actually have a member that's been on the team with us for almost that entire time. We have oversight for about $357,000, of which the commissioners approve a little over $30,000 in match every year, and we are so grateful for that. And our main job is to work to make sure, improve the quality of life for our older adult population. So when I think of what our task is here in the county, I think of the supply and demand curve. And the demand curve is characterized, of course, by what I call the boomer effect, the aging of our population. And it's also impacted by advances in medical care. We have much greater longevity now, health and wellness, and all these things that are, I assume you have a handout of this? Yes. So a picture paints 1,000 words, and I wanted to share with you these population pyramids that I've put together. And I'm kind of a nerd this way. If I get carried away, y'all rein me back in. But I went back to the population of North Carolina in 1900. Each layer of the pyramid represents the population in age ranges. So the bottommost is children that were 0 to 4 years old, and then 5 to 14, all the way up the layers of the cake, if you will. And the uppermost tier is age 75 plus. And you can see at that time it reflects that agrarian society that we had where, how many of you remember that you had great-grandparents and grandparents that were one of 8 or more children? How many of you are one of 8 or more children? How many of you had 8 or more? We stacked this down. So for comparison purposes. And then if we fast forward to year 2000, the bulges on the side there are the baby boomers coming through. I love to look at the age 75 plus layer, look at all that wisdom that we have now that was lost in those prior generations. And if we fast forward to the latest date that the North Carolina Office of State and Budget Management has projections for, we see the boomers have moved on up into this age 75 plus, and some were predicting that our population pyramids would actually invert. We have fewer on the bottom. And that is happening. This isn't just in Davie County, it's not just in North Carolina, it's not just in the United States. This is a global phenomenon that's affecting everyone. And it affects everything from, employment. There's going to be a scarcity of people to take care of us as we age. There's going to be, and I'm sure y'all are well informed about all of this, but this is what it looks like with little old ladies age 75 plus comprising the bulk of the population. So if we look at it another way, I wanted to put it in a different perspective as well. This is our population trend from 1990 up to 2037. If we look at the green layer is age 0 to 19. Back in 1990, they were 26% of the population. By 2037, they're 21% of the population. That doesn't mean that the net number decreased. If you look at the bottom row of numbers, we're still talking about 11,000 young people in this county that we've got to educate and get them raised up. And then the middle layer, and that's a 153% increase. The middle layer is age 20 to 59, and they are projected to grow to 46% of our total population, which is 160% growth. And our 60 plus was just under 20% back in 1990. And overall, that's going to be 32% by 2037, with a large growth there of 334%. And I'm just pleased that we live in a time of such growth. When I started looking at these numbers back in 2012, the projections for Davie County population total were very, very flat. And I think that the work of this Board of Commissioners is part of the reason that this has changed and we are projected for population increases, because you have done things that have attracted and kept people here in this county. And I thank you for it. This is another figure that people in the Aging Network look at, the dependency ratios. What this is in 1990, for every one person over age 85, there were 18 people in that caregiving range up there, age 45 to 65. I'm seeing the delay. And by 2037, it goes down to 7. And again, think of those population pyramids, just the way the ages are stacking up for us. So, not as many people proportion-wise to help us take care of each other. And the same thing with our nursing facility beds here in the county. Right now, we have 228 skilled nursing beds at our 3 facilities. And in 1990, for every 1 bed, there were 8 people age 75 and over. And by 2037, there will be 40 people. Now, as we already said, a lot of us are going to be a lot healthier than we have been in the past, because we work real hard at that, don't we? But this is going to be an issue for us as we go ahead. So the supply curve includes things like this grant funding that we receive in the county that this committee has oversight for, and then all the other aspects of aging well, aging in place, and now they're modifying that to mean they like to say aging with choice now. So for our purposes, we now have 2 funded providers with the consolidation of Davie County Health and Human Services, Division of Senior Services under the wonderful direction of Kim Shusky, and Division of Public Health under Suzanne Wright. We work directly with Deborah Dotson and Melissa Spry, and then Wyvetti provides our transportation under the direction of Lisa Money. And this is very colorful, and I tried to kind of color code it for you, but this is the deployment of the $350,000 that we use. So the orange ones are our nutrition programs. The bright orange is home delivered meals. The kind of gold is congregate meals. The dark green is general transportation that's provided by Wyvetti. The lighter green is medical transportation that's provided in this county. And then the purple are the in-home aid services that's provided. So we have a pretty even distribution. The other small slices up there are also administered by Davie Senior Services. And I wanted you to have a breakout so that you could see. When we have budget cuts, like we have had for the year going ahead, as a committee, we deliberate over this mix and try to make sure that we aren't cutting anything that is very, very important that would increase waiting lists in the county. And we try to be fair and even about it as well. Who are we serving? This is the criteria per the Older Americans Act. So their number one priority are people that are under protection of Adult Protective Services. Notice on all of these 6 criteria, they never mention income. We don't do nurse assessments. It is based on a worker going into the home and doing a visual and interviewing the people and talking with them. So it helps preserve everybody's dignity and help them feel good about the services that they get. I also wanted you to see a little bit of a profile of who is participating in these services. So the women outnumber the men almost 2 to 1, see 67% versus 33%. And the percent served is the column of, that represents the people that are actually receiving the funding here in the county. The other column is the percent of people in this county as a whole that fit that criteria. So we have a lot more single people receiving these services proportionally than we have in the county, which is good. These services are designed to provide socialization and get them out, and they're doing that. We have a high percentage that live alone, that are at or below poverty level. We have an extremely high participation in minorities, and I just want to commend our group for that. I worked for the Piedmont Triad Regional Council Area Agency on Aging in all 12 counties of the region. I've been in every senior center, and I believe we have one of the most diverse, inclusive settings here than anywhere else I've seen, and I commend us for that. I also have to make a comparison to stress the impact and the importance. This one does look funny, doesn't it? So look at the numbers. Under my little column there, numbers served, out beside HCCBG, Home and Community Care Block Grant, we served almost 600 people at a cost per person of $534. And that's just an average. That's just one number divided by another. It's not weighted at all. Compared to 189 people in the county in our nursing homes here at a cost of almost $27,000 apiece. So it just makes sense that helping people stay at home is far and away, well, it's where they want to be. How many of us want to be in a nursing home? It's where they want to be. It's where we all want to be, and it's very cost effective. I'm providing you with our Ombudsman's star ratings report that shows how our facilities in the county are stacking up. And I'm thinking that maybe this committee, that might be one of the things that we take on, is to figure out how we can help get our star ratings up and get our facilities at a higher level. My priorities, I feel like, as your chair, are, first of all, to increase our voting membership up to the 11 members that we need per our bylaws. I'm also very actively recruiting as many agencies and providers as I can to come be part of our meetings and give their reports on what are they seeing trends out here in the community. You know, what are they seeing with the seniors and the older population that they're dealing with, so that our eyes are wide open. I've started having programs and speakers at each of our monthly meetings, and you're welcome to come and talk to us. We are working on that should not say strategic, that should say master aging plan, and then establishing more priorities for us to focus on. To date, with your approval of your consent agenda tonight, you will be approving my 6th person on there, and I have several of our committee members here with us tonight, showing their support. And I continue to follow up with the persons that you recommended to this committee about 8 or 9 months ago. I've gotten a little bit of feedback from some of them, and I'll be able to pass along to Mr. Eller the folks that you recommended. I'm also recruiting in the faith community and our African American community as well. So Davie Senior Services is going to spearhead our master aging plan, and we're coordinating that closely with the county strategic plans that you've lined up. We want to facilitate some focus groups in all our different townships in the county. And we're going to call it community conversations, and see if we can get folks to turn out and come take some surveys and help us identify, are there any gaps? What are we doing well? And take that collaborative approach. So, do you have any questions for me? Well, we thank you so much. Thank you for your support, and thank you for the opportunity to give you our update tonight. Thanks.
Thank you for all you do, and Ms. Shusky, thank you for all you do down at the Senior Center. You do a great job. We appreciate it. So. All right. So next on the agenda, we have 3 public hearings. First is the Advanced Fire Department Rural Tax District, and I'm going to ask Mr. Vogler to give us some context on that before, as we kick that off. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This came about as a result of the Advanced Fire Department submitted a petition that at least 35% of the resident freeholders living in the area commonly known as Advanced Volunteer Fire Department Insurance and Response Area requesting the question of levying and collecting a special tax on all property tax in the district, on all taxable property in the district, not exceeding 15 cents per 100 valuation of property for the purpose of providing fire protection in the district. This petition has been reviewed by the county tax office as required by North Carolina General Statute 6925.1 to ascertain the status of those individuals signing the petition and confirm the location of the property owned by those individuals. And county tax administrators certified the accuracy of the signatures and the numbers to verify that at least 35% of the resident freeholders living in the area have in fact signed the petition. You as the board of the county commissioners, after receiving the petition of the resident freeholders, are required by law, not can, but you're actually required by law to call a special election in the Advanced Volunteer Fire Department Insurance and Response Area for the purpose of submitting to the qualified voters the question of levying and collecting a special tax on all taxable property in the district, not to exceed 15 cents on the $100 valuation purpose of fire protection. Under GS 163A 1592, a special election can only be held at the same time as other state or county general elections, or at the same time as a primary election, and even numbered years at the same time in which all any other election which requires all precincts in the counties to be open. So for 2018, the only window of opportunity, I guess, for this would be the November general election. So that's what you've got, and you're required by law once those 35% signatures have come in to call for that special election. This is a public hearing, and therefore you should now conduct the public hearing as to the proposed resolution, call for the special election.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Vogler before we ask any speakers to come up? Okay. Seeing none, this is a public hearing, so you have said what you, okay.
Now's the time the commissioners open the public hearing for comments on the following, on the resolution of the Davie County Board of Elections to conduct a special hearing in the Advanced Volunteer Fire Department Insurance and Response Area to allow the county to levy and collect a special tax on all taxable property in the area. Said tax not to exceed 15 cents on the $100 valuation of all taxable property for the purpose of providing fire protection. There has been due publication of a notice of the public hearing in the newspaper of general circulation in Davie County is required by law. I would now ask any and all who wish to comment at this public hearing
comments about this request for the fire district for advance? They've met the requirements of the law, and they've got their 35% of the signatures properly vetted, so I will be supporting this request. So, any other comments?
So you got a resolution, and you need a motion to adopt that.
So, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wise Carver, a second by Mr. Poindexter. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the Advanced Fire Department Rural Tax District being a question on the November 2018 ballot, raise your hand. That is approved, 5-0. All right. The next public hearing is a countywide quarter-cent sales tax, and I'm going to ask John Eller to open that with some comments for context.
Mr. Chairman, again, as you said, some context as we go into this public hearing. So the North Carolina General Assembly doesn't require counties to fund fire services, but it does authorize the county to make appropriation for those services. Also, the board may choose to provide varying levels of fire services in different parts of the county. Thankfully, in 1981, the voters of Davie County passed a referendum to allow 4 cents of every $100 value of property to be collected countywide for fire protection and provide funding for those fire departments in their service area to ensure proper coverage was given throughout the county. This revenue can be used to fund fire prevention, suppression, and services throughout Davie County, and services can be provided by the county through contracts with providers or directly with volunteer and municipal fire departments. And Davie County, again, chose to do so directly with the volunteer or municipal fire departments at that time. Davie County does recognize that these districts are required to provide those coverage areas for property in their districts that are exempt from being included in the taxable property value. And currently, the quarter-cent sales and use tax would now allow the county to determine allocations based on all taxable property. Right now, property taxes is really what's determined there, but we're hoping that should this quarter-cent sales and use tax pass, we'd be able to look at the total value by department in those areas, which would include motor vehicles. And also nonprofit and government-related buildings, schools, for instance, increasing those taxable values in those districts. The additional revenue generated here would also be allocated to fire districts in addition to that current 4 cent that they get now, but it would ensure that all departments either maintain at their current level at the minimum amount that they currently get, which we call the base, which equates to more typically in different districts than others, or be eligible for the greater allocation based on that total value that I just mentioned a minute ago. We all know there's a need for public safety increases in Davie County. We have to keep up with those needs, and we have to ensure future sustainability is something for our public safety, for our citizens, and that's something that we can't jeopardize. Seeking additional funding through this sales tax option would enable us to generate funding not just from these residents in Davie County that we hold so dear, but also visitors coming to and fro our county, because just because they're traveling through doesn't mean they may not be a consumer or need our services. Many of you know our fire departments respond to incidents on I-40 all the time. We also have several visitors shopping here in the county that sometimes has issues that requires us to act as well. Whether people come to Davie County to shop, dine, or make other purchases, this sales tax would ultimately benefit our area and go directly to support public safety here in Davie County. And so therefore, we really can't think of any other better time and reason to explore this quarter-cent sales and use tax. As a result of that, our emergency services professionals, many here today, are being faced with new dilemmas that not only require increased manpower, but also equipment, training, really to respond in certain events, just to make sure that we're all protected. As a result of that, the need for public safety becomes more and more predominant in our minds. All of us watch the news. We hear stories. We see of events and tragedies that happen. By this quarter-cent sales and use tax, this is something that we hope will infuse the additional funds needed to keep our residents safe countywide. It's everyone's opportunity to do a very small part here to help keep our community safe. If approved by the board tonight and passed by the voters in November, all funds generated would go directly to support our public safety in Davie County. Those individuals include our fire, sheriff's office, emergency services, and 911 communication. Smaller fire departments who have been concerned over losing funding can now be at ease should this pass, because we all hope that their level of funding would now be sustained and maintained. Our needs continue to increase. We all, as I said earlier, see the day and time in which we live is much different than many of us when we were children. We see our public safety officials respond to events in our communities, oftentimes putting themselves at risk. We've seen an increase in our opioid epidemic. We've seen the need for extra security in public places. We've also seen the issues that many of us face with not so good situations that sometimes we find ourselves involved with. These are the folks on the front line that protect us each and every day. So with that, and the need for those extra public safety measures to be in place, this quarter-cent sales and use tax would now allow us to meet those community needs and provide a strategic direction for our future. It would also provide us with the tools and equipment that we need to support those who help support us. A sales tax is a much better way to generate funds because anyone who makes a monetary transaction in Davie County is charged a sales tax. Sales tax also allows both residents who own property here, but also those who do not own property to participate based on the purchases that they would make here in the county. So it would generate funds to be used to support these critical necessary services in Davie County. Only certain items will be subject to this new tax rate. So for example, for every $100 spent, you spend a quarter for this quarter-cent in sales use tax, as opposed to a tax increase on property value. Items such as clothing, household supplies, electronics, and prepared food and drinks at a restaurant or store would be taxed. Items such as groceries or unprepared foods, prescription medication, gasoline, and certain agricultural supplies and motor vehicles would not be subject to the quarter-cent sales and use tax. If we raise funds through property taxes alone, it would take approximately 2 cents, a little bit less than that, but approximately 2 cents of property tax increase to match that revenue that we need to receive through the quarter-cent sales and use tax. Not only would this cost our citizens more, but property owners will be the only ones affected by the increase. This is the fairest way to do this that we feel that both residents and visitors would be applied as far as paying into this tax. We do plan to meet with our public safety professionals. We hope to meet with our chiefs individually and also with our departments as it relates to our sheriff, emergency services, and 911 communications to explain how this will work pending your vote tonight, and also the impact as it relates to the November ballot that we'll talk about. We'll also be placing information on our website very shortly to make sure that more information is available for our citizens and staff and for you, the board. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you as we go into the public hearing.
Any questions for Mr. Eller before we open it up for public? All right, Mr. Vogler.
Now it's time for the commissioners to open a public hearing to comment on the following resolution and conduct a referendum on the question of whether to levy a sales tax and use tax at the rate of 1/4% in the county as provided by Articles 46 of Chapter 105. There has been due publication of notice of the public hearing in the newspaper of general circulation in Davie County as required by law. I would ask that all who wish to comment at this public hearing come forward to the podium one at a time, state your name, the board, and then comment on the proposal. Mr. Chairman, seeing no one come forward, I would now turn the public hearing back over to you as board chair to close the public comment section of this public hearing. Provide the board the opportunity to discuss among yourselves what if any action you wish to take regardless of this matter.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vogler. Anybody have any comments, concerns?
The, just clarification, if we did not act tonight, or if the referendum fails, we're at 2020, right? For the next.
By statute, that is correct.
appreciate all public safety does. Couldn't do quality of life issue, safety issues, obviously by definition, but appreciate what you do. We understand everything you have is expensive. Your personnel needs are continue to escalate, and we get that. So we believe that this is the fairest way to approach this, and pending the vote, I hope people will support this and take the time to get educated, because it's the point Commissioner Jones is making. If for whatever reason we weren't successful, which that's the glass half empty, it would be 2 years before we could revisit this. So again, pending the vote, I hope everyone takes time to get educated and works to help us promote this and pass it in November.
And I would say this, Mr. Chairman, I believe, John, you have had discussions with leaders in the public safety community about the formula that we're looking at if the bond passes.
Correct, yes. We would be talking to all those individuals that I mentioned to go through that, because it is something that obviously we want everyone to understand. Right now, as I mentioned, the base methodology, we would look at the base versus the total value, and the greater of the two in that district would be what folks would receive. So we've had conversations, obviously, with our folks, the sheriff, in addition to our 911 communications and our emergency services folks, and we'll continue to do that. And after we sit down with each chief, we want to answer every question, Commissioner Jones, that they might have as to how the formula works, how it compares to their current allocation now, and what it would look like going forward as we begin to go down this path together. And Mr. Chairman, if I might also just want to thank the board. I know at our budget hearing, when we were here passing our current fiscal year budget, we talked about this being one of the last levers that we had left, and all of you have been adamant that you did not want to raise property taxes any further, and so therefore we see this as, again, a good means to be able to honor that.
I think it's important, too, that we look at what's happening around us and other counties. At least 2 of the counties today that we join have this tax, and another one is looking at it. So this is, in my opinion, definitely the best way to raise some more funds for what we need desperately for our emergency services. So I strongly support it.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to vote this up or down.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, have a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of having the question of a countywide quarter-cent sales tax on the November 2018 ballot as a question, please raise your hand. Okay, that is approved 5-0. All right, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Eller, for all the work you did on behind the scenes on that. It's been a lot of effort went into that to this point. All right, now we move to the third public hearing on concealed handguns. And again, for context, I'm going to ask Mr. Vogler to lead us off.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. This has come about as a result of changes in law in Raleigh, North Carolina, that affect our local code of ordinance that was passed on November the 27th, 1995. As written, our current code of ordinance, section 130.02, provides that appropriate signage on each park, building, or portion of a building now or hereinafter owned, leased, operated, occupied, managed, or controlled by the county, as well as all pertinent premises to such buildings, be posted prohibiting concealed handguns on the property. The General Assembly passed a, quote, an act to amend various firearm laws in North Carolina, end of quote, by House Bill number 562, which purpose was to provide a statewide uniformity of local regulations such as our own ordinance. The statute provides that the regulation of firearms is properly an issue of general statewide concern, and that the entire field of regulation of firearms is now preempted from regulation by local government except as provided by statute. Our current ordinance as written is now in violation of House Bill 562. The same relates to county parks and to the grounds and parking areas around our county buildings. As such, the county needs to revise, review, and/or repeal the current ordinance. Please note that the proposed changes do not in any way add any additional firearm restrictions to the citizens of here in Davie County. And it simply brings us in line with what state law now requires. This is a public hearing matter, and therefore you should now conduct your public hearing as to the proposed changes of our code of ordinance for Davie County.
Any questions for Mr. Vogler? All right, seeing none, I'll ask you to communicate the legalese there.
Now's the time where the commissioners open a public hearing for comment on the code of ordinance change to chapter 130, section 130.02, entitled Concealed Handguns in the Code of Ordinance of Davie County, North Carolina. There has been due publication of notice of the public hearing in the newspaper general circulation as required and as required by law. I would now ask that all who wish to comment at this public hearing come forward to the podium one at a time, state your full name for the board, and then comment on the proposal. Seeing no one come forward, Mr. Chair, I will now turn the public hearing back over to you to close the public comment section of this public hearing, provide the board the opportunity to discuss among yourselves what, if any, action you would wish to take with regards to this matter at this time.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Any comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would just make a motion to, as we would have it, to repeal the ordinance and come in line with state guidelines.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the new ordinance to be compliant, raise your hand. Okay, 5-0. Thank you. All right. Next, we will move to the consent agenda. And I understand you may have some questions about the resolution on the lawsuit, the opioid lawsuit. Has anyone got any questions about that?
Yes, I have a question on that subject.
Okay.
I did not realize that we had decided that we were going to move forward with litigation on this. I know we've discussed it several times, but I did not realize that we had made that decision.
What I recall, Mr. Ferguson, is we had authorized the county attorney and the county manager to negotiate with whatever law firm they felt appropriate. And if we could have a situation where we would not be at risk for any money out of pocket should we not be successful in the lawsuit, that we authorized them to proceed. So that's, and I do think there's a time crunch, a timeline, time certain that we have to have this presented to be enjoined in the lawsuit. Is that correct, Mr. Eller?
That is correct. Mr. Vogler's been working diligently about this. I know we've talked about the process and the steps involved, and we understand from talking with the board that our concern was if we entered into this agreement, one, we could always back out, and two, that there would be clawback provisions in there to ensure that we wouldn't be utilizing our tax-paying dollars on this litigation, that we would only benefit from the litigation should the litigation prove successful. And just for some context, Mr. Chairman, this is part of a statewide movement that all counties are talking about right now as it relates to moving forward with litigation against those opioid manufacturers for the impact that their citizens are faced with as a result of first responders, but also other departments serving those populations. And, you know, we have run those numbers and shared some preliminary results with you in the past about those. So I think Mr. Vogler, I won't speak for him, but I know we are on a timeline as to moving this forward.
Well, I got a question about it. Are we joining a statewide suit, or are we an individual suit?
You want to?
It would actually be an individual suit if a suit is filed. At this point in time, we're joining in with a nationwide group to see what is available as far as any possible settlements through a multi-district litigation provision set up in U.S. federal court that is actually being spearheaded out of Ohio, the state of Ohio. There has been, at this point in time, between 65 and 70 counties plus multiple municipalities here in North Carolina that have already joined that group, some of which have already filed actions in U.S. federal district court. Many, though, which has not actually filed an action in U.S. federal district court, but by joining in with the groups, and there's actually three basic groups here in the United States that's spearheading this, three basic law firms or groups of law firms that are spearheading this, but by joining in with them and signing on with them, that gives them the authority, if in the future they see fit to file a suit on behalf of Davie County or any other county, gives them the authority to negotiate on our behalf at this point in time. Now, if the negotiations are not fruitful, then at that point in time, they have the ability to file lawsuits on behalf of all of their clients. And the attorney's agreement that we've got with them, we can at any point in time pull the plug and say, no, don't file the lawsuit, or yes, you filed the lawsuit 3 weeks ago, but we decide we don't want to pursue the lawsuit, or 2 years into the lawsuit, we can pull the plug and say we do not wish to pursue the lawsuit. And we would not have any expenses as far as attorney's fees, as far as their cost or anything up to that point in time that they may have incurred in the lawsuit, and we can just walk away at that point.
Well, that all sounds good, but my concern, I saw this afternoon for the first time, and I don't feel comfortable not having an opportunity to really read through that and see it. I'm voting on it tonight, personally. That's my concern. My other concern on this is, I sat in on a phone conversation back, I think it was February, on this subject with all the state of North Carolina and several of the counties represented in that. And this is going to be a very, very tough situation to prove that what caused the problems, whether it was illegal drugs or whether it was a pharmaceutical company. And my concern is that we, the county, will be spending an awful lot of time going through records and getting all this information. And what we'll get out of it, I don't know. But I think it's a risky business if we're going to have to spend a lot of money digging up information on it. That's my concern on this. I think it needs some more investigation, but I'm not one to make snap decisions. If I'd have seen this before this afternoon, I would have felt a whole lot better about it.
Mr. Chairman, question in regards to John's concern. Is 30 days going to affect our ability to, and that would give us all time to study this?
What is the time certain, Mr. Vogler, that we have?
There is no time certain at this point in time. They keep telling us in Ohio that you need to be in the group so that if the settlement does come down the road, that we'll be in that first tier versus a second or third tier, or versus being left out in the cold completely. I know we discussed this, the legalities and the potential out of timetable that if you don't pass it by, August 15th, that
What
it's gonna kill you.
what determines whether you're in the first, second, or third tier that you're talking?
That would be, that's something that the federal judge, in the state of Ohio is looking at, and he's not given us any examples of it yet.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, the only feedback Mr. Vogler and I have been given is they're looking to see which counties are participating or not prior to the case being heard. And we don't know exactly at this point when the case is going to be heard. So, could we schedule it for next month and then give you time again to look at the agreement? If the case isn't heard by then, there would be no issue with that. That's just really when we said there's a time frame or timetable involved, that's what we're dealing with at this point.
What's going to determine the amount, and I know this is a very vague question, but I think John's concern is the amount of time in local resources that we're going to spend coming up with information. And I know that's nebulous, but I mean, how have you all put any thought to this about, how much time is the sheriff going to have his staff spending on social services, whoever it might be, spending on this, and then the case just get dropped or settled?
A lot of the time that is going to be spent on this is time that already has to be spent on this, that goes into state reports. And we've already got a lot of the state reports that's been built in for the last 4 or 5 years, so that the state has been keeping records, and we can actually go online and look at the state reports and see what the Davie County is above, below.
Okay.
And that was some of the information that I gave you back
Right.
a few months back. But you can actually go on that website and look, and it will give you numbers, give you reports. But those are reports that the Department of Social Service, Department of Health, everybody has to send into the state anyway.
So they're there anyway.
Yeah.
My main concern was just the financial obligation that we might have if we decided to pull out, it got dropped, or we lost. So you've clarified that for me, but I certainly understand John's concern, but you've also alleviated, in my mind, that concern if you're telling me most of that information is already being compiled. Anyway.
Either has already been compiled or is required to be compiled.
Or will be.
Each month.
Yeah.
Or each year.
Yeah, and what we don't know is the risk with any litigation or anything we
I
get
know.
thrown. There may be things they ask for that we don't track, and then I don't want to say there wouldn't be any manual tracking at this point. We don't know, which is why we wanted the flexibility, if you will, Commissioner Jones and Ferguson, to be able to say, you know what, this is something we're going to withdraw from, so that flexibility is there in the event that we get into this and it's not for us.
With no financial obligation.
Correct.
That's
Other
correct.
than time spent.
That was the direction that you gave us, correct?
Is there a way we could get this information a day or two before the meeting to have a chance to really go through it, as opposed to
Sure.
having it an hour before the meeting or a few hours before the meeting?
Well, I'll be happy to get that to you, Commissioner Ferguson. I know that we try to put these agendas out before the meeting, before our meetings tonight, to give you time to prepare for those. But if you've had some technology issues, or if you ever have questions, we're always willing to get that back to you. And again, we serve at your pleasure. So if this is something you don't feel comfortable with tonight, and all of you decide you want to wait, as long as the case doesn't start before then, we're fine doing that.
Personally, I think the risk is more than the gain, but that's just my feeling. I've spent too much time with attorneys in my life, I guess.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think that we really need to address on these things is this a problem that we, the county, brought, or are we reacting to a bunch of attorneys coming in here to us saying, you should join this suit?
No, this is something I could say, I won't call them out tonight, but I can say a lot of our department heads in this room and here, there's not a day goes by that they don't deal with opioid-related issues, and the estimates that we have run from that impact. This isn't us trying to keep up with what other counties are doing. This is an issue that we continue to see increasing, and how we deal with those opioid-related issues. And should this lawsuit be successful, to be able to reimburse those persons who deal with this each and every day, as far as the services the county provides, is the only reason that we're considering moving forward with this, which is why we have the clawbacks, or at any point we feel like we need to get out of that. Should we ever feel uncomfortable, we can do so. But for us, it isn't about catering to an attorney or catering to what other counties are doing.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just weigh in that, I remember it sort of like you and our county manager did, that we did, say, we'd move forward with it as been said here tonight. And, it wasn't gonna be at no cost to the county. And, but again, with, Mr. Ferguson, if he needs more time, then I have no problem with that either.
I certainly have no problem. I mean, given it's the federal court, I mean, it could be 3 years from now before they think about it. So I don't see we've got a whole lot of risk, but as far as kicking this to next month, or give us more time to study that. So procedurally, how would we need to do that?
You would need to, at this point in time, make a motion to amend the consent agenda to have that pulled off the consent agenda. And it would be a motion to amend the prior motion, where you approve the agenda.
Yeah, I have one question. I don't, and I may be way off base, I don't remember just getting this just today. I think, did we not get this? We got this more than a week ago. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I didn't want folks out here to think, well, hey, you guys, we're playing a Congress deal here where it gets dropped in our lap, asked to vote on. We actually have had this for, I'm going to say at least a week. Maybe.
And actually, the document that is the attorney's agreement, I received it back on March the 29th, 2018. That was the Forsyth County agreement, and that was given to this board in a closed session on April the 4th, 2018. And then it was pulled after we were told we couldn't get the same deal that Forsyth County got. And now after sending letters out to other firms and them realizing that we were serious, that we didn't automatically have to go with this particular firm, they came back and says, oh, we will do the same thing as Forsyth County.
What I got a couple of about a week ago was I did get the Exhibit A is what I'm saying. That was what I was questioning. I got the thing, John, you sent out that had the resolution, but the Exhibit A was not attached to that. What I got.
I know in May, the board discussed giving us the authority to use that draft agreement that we talked about to enter into negotiations with those firms, and we based it on that template that was shared. So what you have before you, I wouldn't say, Commissioner Ferguson, is new information. It's just now we're ready to execute if the board feels comfortable with executing based on giving us the authority in May to do that.
And that was the resolution that was passed May 7th, where it says hereby authorized to enter negotiation in a formal attorney's agreement with one of the leading national
The only thing I had not seen until today was this Exhibit A.
Well,
And that may be my fault.
well, in any event, seems to be probably make some sense to maybe look at this again in September. So, so would someone like to make the motion to help me here, Mr. Vogler, to pull item E from the consent agenda?
That's correct. You need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion to remove item E, the resolutions, from the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second that out of respect for Commissioner Ferguson.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. amend the original agenda that we
That's
adopted?
correct.
Okay. All right, so need to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda that we've adopted without item E on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion, have a second. All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your hand. All right, 5-0. Now, we gotta have a motion to adopt that.
Consent agenda.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda without E, item E, resolutions.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Poindexter, second by Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll raise your hand if you're in favor. Okay, 5-0. All right, we'll look forward
Now,
to.
you need to, at this point in time, have a motion to move the resolution authorizing opioid litigation to the September meeting.
Make that motion too.
All right, Mr. Poindexter makes that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Ferguson seconds that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of moving the resolutions of the opioid litigation to the September regular scheduled meeting, raise your hand. 5-0. All right. There we go. Okay. Next, we'll move to county manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll be brief. First of all, I know some of the information you saw tonight regarding the aging services plan may not be something you see every day, but definitely think, looking at those star ratings that you saw, something we'll definitely want to work with the committee on. We know that it's the cost to safely have our seniors remain in their own homes versus licensed facilities much less on the taxpayer. We also know through the leadership of Kim Shusky and the Senior Center, I think we do a fabulous job of serving that population, and thank her for her partnering with the Aging Services Planning Committee in conjunction with her advisory committee as well. I think they're trying to re-energize that committee and get more citizen engagement, and our Senior Center does a great job with that. So Kim, thank you for what you do for us. A couple other things. One is I've been doing some shadowing. Sat with our 911 communications folks recently. They did a great job, and they were busy the day I was there. So that was good for me to listen in and support those folks and appreciate what they do for us. And then also participating with the Rescue Squad and Squad 81. Up for EMS. I'll be riding on a EMS truck with Brian's crew shortly, and then I'll be heading out to the utilities department to get some mud and dig some ditches and help those guys out. So hopefully they won't take it too hard on me that day. But I do appreciate all the work that all of our staff do. We have a great staff, and hopefully next month when you come in this room, all this temporary stuff will be gone, and we'll have the renovations complete in this room. So thank you for your patience, and thanks for all you do for Davie County.
Thank you. All right. Any old business that come before us this evening? Any new business? All right. That takes us to commissioners' comments. Mr. Jones.
I'll just say thanks to everyone for coming. The crowd has slimmed down a little bit. That's good. I really appreciate the fact that we spent more time, my fears were calm. We spent more time amending the consent agenda that we did on 3 public hearings. So that's a good thing, I think. I want to congratulate Ms. Hendricks on getting her a daughter finally. She's got a daughter now, a daughter-in-law, and she is a fine young lady, and Jesse's a fine young man. Congratulations, okay? And just thank everyone for coming.
Robert.
I compliment Commissioner Jones, what he said. Just thank you, everybody, and thank you for the prayers for me this year. Undergone 2 knee replacements, and everything's going great there, so I appreciate your prayers there, and appreciate putting up with me for missing a couple meetings. So, but just thank everyone for coming out and supporting your commissioners.
Thank you. Mr. Poindexter.
I too would reflect
the comments by Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Wise Carver. Thank everybody for being here tonight, and hope to come back next month.
I would also like to thank the people who came out tonight, but as always, I would like to thank all of our county employees that go to bat for us every day and make us look good. And it's important that we do the right services for all of our citizens of our county. And I don't know about the rest of the commissioners, but I very seldom ever get a telephone call. So I think that's is due to the fact that people out there are doing their job, and I certainly do appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for coming out, and look forward to working hard to try to get this sales tax passed. I believe it's needed, as I've already said, and so you'll be seeing a lot of information about this from the county over the next 90 days. And if you have any questions, I urge you to ask them and be informed. So with that, appreciate you being here. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, have a second. Ferguson makes that second. All in favor? 5-0. We are adjourned. Thank you.